So, welcome. I'm Dr. Patricia Mills. I'm a medical doctor, holistic medical doctor, functional medicine practitioner, and a passionate advocate for your health transformation. And I'm so excited to be here today to talk to you about your thyroid because the thyroid is super, super important to regulate your entire body's metabolism, right? I mean, I think we all know about that. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug into my there's a bit of construction going on outside of my home, and I'm grateful to them for making our neighborhood look beautiful, and the noise is very distracting. So here we go. I'm just going to do this. Oh, actually, they got quiet, so that's perfect. So the thyroid is interesting because we often focus on the thyroid gland just on its own, right? We talk about the thyroid gland. And so the thyroid gland sits just on top of the neck like a butterfly. And it's actually like the shape of it is this butterfly, and it's kind of cool when in nature when you see patterns in nature like reflected in nature. So like our lungs look like trees, they look like upside down trees with the trunk coming up into our mouth, and as we breathe we oxygenate our bodies through these tree like lungs, so it's so beautiful. And our thyroid looks like a butterfly. And I just wanted to say hello to Marina. Oi, Marina. Hi, Ushi, Ursula. Good morning from Calgary. Great. My comments are working. I am super, super, super happy. Wonderful. And if you're catching this outside of the Facebook group and you want to participate live in these kinds of events, join my Wild Wisdom for Women's with Dr. Patricia Mills MD Facebook group. It's a beautiful community. All of these amazing women who are here joining me today. I appreciate you. Thank you. It's so much more fun for me to present to a live audience. So I appreciate that. So we have this delicate tissue of the thyroid, and it's delicate yet powerful, because some little known facts about the thyroid gland is that every our body is made up of cells, right? Like the building blocks of our body are tiny little cells, okay? And each cell has like, in order to like make the cell work, you need to have keys to open up the locks, to open up the doors to the cells, so that things like hormones and nutrients and stuff can get into the cell, right? Because a cell is like the factory of your body. That's where all the magic happens. That's where things are made. The blood is like the highway that transports these hormones and nutrients. Like the food that you eat gets broken down, goes into the blood, and it transports. It's like a highway. But the magic, right? When I say magic, what I mean is like the workings of the body, like the things that make the liver clean your body and detoxify. Your ovaries make estrogen and testosterone and progesterone. Your adrenal glands make cortisol, the stress hormone. That all happens inside of the cells, right? That doesn't happen in the blood. Okay. And what's really cool is that every single cell in your body has a receptor. So it receives the thyroid hormone. So isn't that fascinating? The only other receptor that is like this is for vitamin D, which, by the way, vitamin D is a hormone. It's not a vitamin, it's a hormone. That's something that they found out after the fact. Okay. So it's so important, because what that means is that whether your thyroid is overworking, like is putting out too much thyroid hormone, or underworking, not putting out too little thyroid hormone, so hyperthyroidism or hypothyroidism, will affect all of your body parts. So it's not like, oh, it's just my skin or my gut or my ovaries or my lungs or my brain. It's like literally everything. Okay, so very, very important. And what does the thyroid do? Well, the thyroid hormone, so the thyroid basically pumps out into the blood its hormones, its thyroid hormones, okay? And it primarily has two primary thyroid hormones, which I'll get into, but it pumps it out into the blood, and then these thyroid hormones travel through the blood and then interact with all of your tissues. And what they do is they regulate the amount of energy in your body. So it basically increases like your metabolism, so how much energy your body produces by breaking down foods and nutrients and that kind of stuff. Okay, so if you have a lot of that hormone, let's say, and you kind of learn about what the thyroid does by observing the extremes, right? So what are the extremes of the thyroid? Well, hyperthyroid and hypothyroid. So for example, if the thyroid gland is pumping out like a lot of hormones, it's too much, it's like pumping it out too much. There are reasons why this happens, but let's say something has happened and now your thyroid gland is just dumping out the hormones. What do people experience? They experience like nervousness and being jittery and kind of like anxious, and their heart might race, and they might have problems with their digestion. Their energy is like, it's like a nervous energy, it's not like a good high level of energy, it's like a nervous energy. And even the nervous system is overactivated. And in medical school we were taught that one way to determine if someone was hyperthyroid is it you would test their reflexes. When you go to the doctor and they look at your knee, let's say this is like your knee, and they kind of bump your knee like that, and they're looking for your leg to kind of jump up. That's because that there's nervous system regulates how reactive you are to that. And if you have hyperthyroidism, your nervous system is turned up, so you're literally like on, it's so anxious, so it's hard to fall asleep, it's hard to stay asleep. And some people even get diagnosed with bipolar disorder, because you can have like almost like a manic, like you're manically hyperactive. So that's hyperthyroidism. And the thing is that the thyroid gland, there are certain conditions that will actually cause it to sometimes be pumping out too much thyroid and some to not be putting enough. And then you go into hypothyroid. And then what does hypothyroid look like? Okay, so people who don't have enough thyroid hormones, they're the opposite end of the spectrum. So they have low energy. Their systems are all slowed down. They have like slow digestion, constipation, often dry skin, dry hair. You often lose the outer third of your eyebrow hair if you used to have it, and then you're losing it right there. That's a sign of your thyroid, hormones not functioning properly. Okay. um, and everything feels sluggish, and you can feel depressed. So that's why some people who have been diagnosed with bipolar disorder actually might be fluctuating between hyperthyroid and hypothyroid. And then there's some people who are just like always hyperthyroid, and some people who are always hypothyroid. And then so that's kind of the spectrum of the thyroid. What I wanted to tell you though is that you can be on that spectrum of either within the optimal range. So optimal range is like great healthy hair, great luscious eyebrows, great skin, it's not dry, enough energy, you got that vital energy, you fall asleep well, you stay asleep well. Not to say that sleep disorders are only from the thyroid, but if you have a thyroid condition, it's going to be like kind of miraculous if you sleep really well. You might sleep too much with hypothyroidism, like you're like oversleeping, you're just like so sluggish in the morning, you can't get up in the morning, it's like a struggle to get up. So you kind of now understand the spectrum of if the thyroid is working optimally versus like not working enough hypothyroidism, and working too much hyperthyroidism. All right, now you might say, okay, so what's wrong with my thyroid? And what I would say to you is, wait a second, before let's talk about what's wrong with your thyroid, let me tell you about the thyroid pathway. Okay, because the thyroid is simply the organ that pumps out the thyroid hormones. And there are two major thyroid hormones. One of them is called, I'm going to use the short forms because the long forms are just really hard to remember. One is called T4. Why is it called T4? Because it has 4 iodine molecules bound to it. Remember how everyone talks about how iodine is really, really good for your thyroid health? Well, it's because you need to have 4 iodine molecules to make T4, and you need to have 3 iodine molecules to make T3. What's really interesting is that your thyroid pumps out about 80% of the thyroid hormone it pumps out is T4, and about 20% it pumps out is T3. But the one that's the most active in the tissue is actually the T3. So in the body, after the thyroid hormone has pumped out these thyroid hormone, after the thyroid has pumped out these thyroid hormones, the body then needs to change T3 to T4 to T3. It needs to take off an iodine molecule to make T3 so that it is the one that's mostly active in the body. Okay, so you could actually, let's say for example that you have something happening in the level of your tissues, so in the blood or in the cells, And for some reason that you're not able to take that iodine off of the T4 and make it into T3, you're going to be experiencing hypothyroidism at the level of the tissues, which means your body is going to you're going to be experiencing all of those hypothyroidism conditions that I described. But if someone were to do your blood test, like if a doctor were to do your blood test in the blood, it looks like everything is okay, because they're like, oh yeah, you have your thyroid stimulating hormone looks okay. Because why? What is your thyroid stimulating hormone? That's the hormone that your doctor tests first. Okay. Why do they test that first? Well, because of the thyroid pathway. So here is your brain controlling your thyroid. Okay. And there's two centers in the brain that work together to control your thyroid. Okay. One is the hypothalamus and one is the pituitary. They're two centers in the brain. The hypothalamus is like the sensor. The hypothalamus senses what's going on in the body. Do we need more energy or do we need less energy? Okay. It senses that, and then it also receives information about how many hormones are floating around in the body in terms of the thyroid hormone. So if there's too much, it should turn it down. If it's, so it has like this beautiful feedback loop going on in the body, where the body feeds back information to the brain so the brain can then control the thyroid. Depending on what the hypothalamus senses, like is the body temperature too low, because that's something that the thyroid hormone regulates, is body temperature. If your body temperature is too low, your hypothalamus sends a message to your pituitary, which then sends what's called the thyroid stimulating hormone. Okay, so the thyroid stimulating hormone, the TSH, is sent from the pituitary to the thyroid, and it says stimulate. It stimulates it to make more hormones. Okay, and if the body senses that there's not enough hormones in the body, it'll increase your thyroid stimulating hormone, right? It's like, make some more hormone. Okay. And if it senses that there's too much thyroid hormones in the body, it decreases its stimulation of the hormones, right? Like, too much, let's bring it down. Too little, let's bring it up, right? It's always doing that. Okay. And so what Western medicine does is it first measures your thyroid stimulating hormone to see, is it too high, which means that there's not enough thyroid hormone in the body, okay? Or is it too low, which means, is there something going on that there's like so much hormone in the body? But typically what they're looking for is it too high. That's typically what like really triggers them to think, we might need to give this person thyroid hormone to make them feel better. But you have to understand that there are conditions in which you might actually have normal thyroid stimulating hormone, okay? Like the level is normal on your blood work. And if your level is normal in your blood work, what your doctor will often do is not even test T4, okay? Because they're like, well, if this is normal, then this should be normal, right? However, there are conditions in which this can be normal, and even T4 can be normal should they test it, but your body is not responding well to thyroid. Why? Okay. First of all, the reason is because, let's say you have enough T4, right? So you have enough T4, so your thyroid, your thyroid isn't being stimulated to make a lot more. It's just like, yeah, we have enough T4. But what if the problem is that your body's not able to make T4 into T3, right? Now, if they did the blood work where they measured T4 and T3, then you might start to see that there's an issue with this T3 level. Okay, if your doctor were to do that blood work, and if you're working in a publicly funded kind of situation like in Canada, where they will not test that T3 unless you have problems with TSH and T4, that problem will not be picked up. Okay, and here's the other interesting factor, is that how do these hormones get transported in the blood? Like, if you think about them as like little kids, they usually float around in the blood attached to a protein. So you can think of it like the protein is like the bus, right? And the bus grabs the kids and transfers around the body. Most of the protein of the hormones are attached to, many of the hormones are attached to these proteins. Okay. However, they need to detach from the protein in order to then get into the cell, right? They can't go into the cell with the bus. They can't go into the warehouse in the bus, right? They have to get off the bus and walk into the warehouse, which is your cell, the factory, which is your cell. Well, how do you measure that? It's called the free T4 and TSH. It's the amount of hormone in your body that's free from the bus, right? To get into the factory to be used by the body. So an even better blood work test is to do your TSH, your T4, your T3, and then your free T4 and your free T3. Do you see where I'm getting? Like we're getting into layers and layers and layers of like how is it that at different parts, so like let's say for example your body isn't doing a really good job of detaching the thyroid hormone from the protein from the bus, and you don't have a lot of free T3 or T4 floating around, your body's not going to be able to use that hormone. So here's your thyroid pumping out the hormone, and maybe it's not turning T4 into T3, so it's not really active in the body, or maybe the T4 and T3 are staying bound to the protein, so it's not being released and your body can't use it. So all the blood work looks like it's okay, but you're feeling hypothyroid, right? And that happens often where a woman will present to the doctor and say, like, I just don't feel well. I've got low energy. I've got constipation. My hair is falling out. I've got, this, my eyebrows, everything, my skin is dry. And then they run the blood work panel and everything comes back normal. And they're like, well, I don't know. It's normal, right? And I mean, I don't blame them because having gone through that training myself, there's a certain point at which it stops. And it's like, okay, what do we do in the case of not detecting disease, right? You don't have like a detectable, diagnosable, here's the label, you have hypothyroidism condition, according to our current definition of hypothyroidism, which is based on blood work. But can you see now how you can have a hypothyroid condition in the body that is not detected by blood work? And I'm going to give you one more way that this could not be detected by blood work. Okay, so let's say, for argument's sake, that everything is going well up until the point where I described. So your hormone is pumping out enough of the thyroid hormone, your thyroid is pumping enough of the thyroid hormone out, it's getting into the body, it's being converted from T4 to T3, and they're free in the body to do their work. Here's two more ways that this could go wrong, so to speak. One way is that there are certain conditions in the body that arise that convert to the T3, the one that makes the work happen in the cells, to what's called reverse T3. And reverse T3 is a T3 that has been basically changed so that it no longer works in the body. Okay? It's called, and in the blood work, it's RT3, reverse T3. So this now is different enough from this that it no longer can get into the cells and activate the cells to do their magic with their metabolism, right? With their inside work. Okay. So now you could have a building up amount of reverse T3, which is blocking the action of T3, of your good T3. So reverse T3 blocking up the action of your good T3. Okay. And functional medicine doctors and naturopathic doctors, when you run a panel and you pay for it, because the government doesn't pay for that, you can actually detect reverse T3. And there's actually what's called the ratio, where you measure your T3 and your reverse T3, and you want your regular T3 to be higher than your reverse T3, right? You want it to be dominant, like making the work happen in the body. It's okay to have some, because the reverse T3 under normal conditions acts like a brake on the body to say, okay, not too much thyroid, because you don't want to overdo the thyroid, right? But when you have too much reverse T3, that can be a problem. What causes too much reverse T3? One condition that causes too much reverse T3 to be made is stress. Yeah, stress. When you're under physical, mental, or emotional stress, your cortisol hormone goes up, right? That's from the adrenal glands. Cortisol hormone has this crazy effect where it actually negatively affects the entire thyroid pathway. It goes to the brain and it changes the way that your brain speaks to your thyroid. It decreases or increases it, actually. Like, it's fascinating. It can do either or. It goes into the thyroid and it can make it either overactive or underactive. Okay. And it can interact with the processes in the body to stop it from being turned from T4 to T3, and it can increase the T3 to reverse T3. It's this crazy, like, it's just so not good. Stress is so not good for the thyroid pathway. It's kind of unbelievable. Okay. And then the last way that your thyroid pathway can be affected is at the level of the cell. Remember that the envelope of the cell, like the lining of the cell, the skin of the cell is where the receptors sit to receive the thyroid hormone, right? So here's the membrane and here's the receptor going, where's my thyroid hormone? Come here, I want to do some work. Okay. Now, stress will actually make it so that this receptor to thyroid interaction is not working properly. So that's another way that stress cortisol hormone can affect that. But also, what you eat to make up that cellular membrane is called membrane medicine, the membrane of the cell. If you're not eating the right components that your body needs to make these cellular membranes, it does not have a good receptor membrane functioning. And so now you could actually have everything is like you do the blood work and everything looks great, right? But what's happening is that at the level of the cellular membrane, the membrane of the cell, that receptor is not working because what the building blocks that is being are being provided to that membrane to make that membrane are not good quality building blocks. What do I mean by this? For example, we know the trans fatty acids. So the cellular membranes are mostly made up of fat, like oil. Okay, they're flexible and fluid and they're oily. All right. If you're eating the wrong kind of oil, you're gonna go from having a nice flexible fluid cell to a stiffer cell. What makes these cells stiffer? Trans fatty acids are one because when they do this when they synthetically made these fats. So what am I talking about? Like margarine, Becel, these vegetable-based spreadable like oils, okay? The ones that are kind of stiff at room temperature. So not so like butter was is like, they're like, well, Napoleon Bonaparte actually, he's the one who kind of started this where he provided a prize for a scientist who was able to make a butter like kind of product that would last longer off the shelf, wouldn't go rancid, and was cheaper to make, and so he could distribute it to the men on the wars in the front lines during the war. And so someone came up with the idea that if they took this like product and they did certain chemical things to it, they could make the spreadable vegetable oil. And what the problem is that it's quite stiff, and it's a kind of a stiffness that when it gets taken up into the body and used to make the cell membrane, the cell membrane becomes stiff. And that's not good. Okay, so that can you can still if you're unfortunately you've been eating or you are eating or you have eaten a lot of those kind of healthy it's so sad because we were told it was healthy. It's like even on the blue menu sometimes, the base cells and the margarines and those spreadable vegetable oil based kind of margarine type things. um, and also, like if you look at it, if you look at your product ingredient products, a lot of the processed foods, they're using these kinds of chemically created oils, which are not fluid and flexible. The fluid and flexible oils that are incorporated into our body properly are only the ones made by nature. Olive oil, sesame oil, avocado oil, coconut oil. Because why? You can actually squeeze the oil out of it, mechanically compress it out. You don't need any chemical reactions to get that oil out. So it's literally, and from animals like fish oil, from like cows and all that kind of stuff. They have their own kind of oil, which is a little bit stiffer. So you don't want to have a lot of the like the ruminants, the cows and the goats and that kind of stuff. That should be small amounts, like once a week or once every couple of weeks, but that kind of stuff. The other like they tend to have like stiffer oils, more saturated fats it's called. Okay, and you don't want to have too much of that, but you don't want to have none of that. It's kind of like having this balance. And if you're vegetarian, you can get your saturated fats from coconut oil. Coconut oil has actually more saturated fat than animals do. So you do want to not overdo, you don't want to overdo the coconut oil too. Okay, like you want to get enough. The body needs some of the stiff oils from nature, a lot of the flexible oils from nature, and that allows your body to work at the cellular level, creating that receptor hormone interaction that will allow the hormone to have its effect on your body. Okay, and what's really cool is that regardless of where on the pathway your hormone has been, your thyroid health has been affected, whether it's at the level of the brain, the thyroid, or at the level of the tissues, or in the blood, or at the level of the tissues. I have witnessed it when when they do the right lifestyle things. What I mean by lifestyle, I mean personal, strategic supplements, targeted supplements, strategic movement, mindset for mental and spiritual wellness, supporting natural systems of detoxification, When you do all of those things, it hits the thyroid pathway at every single point. So when your doctor prescribes you your T4 hormone, which is often the hormone that's prescribed, the drug that's prescribed for people who are diagnosed with hypothyroidism, right? What they're doing is they're not recognizing that what if that person isn't able to take that T4 and convert it to T3, right? Okay, so that's number one. And it's kind of like a band aid. So something is happening to your body, right, at the level of the blood, the tissues, the thyroid, or the brain that's causing your thyroid not to function. Sure, it's great to feel good in the short term by getting that medication. So at least you have the energy. But then when you get the energy, it's time to look around and say, what made my thyroid pathway dysfunction? And listen, you know what? I might not even be able to identify what made it not go off track, right? Off pathway. But I know that if I get the right nutrition, the right supplements, the right kind of movement, the right kind of stress reduction techniques and mindset techniques and support my natural systems of detoxification, because what can impact thyroid function, for example, is fluorine, bromine, chlorine, and mercury, right? All of those molecules will go and attach into your thyroid and actually get in the way of your thyroid functioning. So having open working systems of natural detoxification, which can be overwhelmed in today's modern society where we are being overexposed to these molecules in our environment, right? Chlorine from hot tubs and pools, fluorine from our water, bromine is in our processed foods, right? Potassium bromate, mercury in some of our fish and our dental amalgams, in the environment. Like these things, I mean, I'm not making this up and I'm not being overly drastic. It's just simply the way it is. And I can tell you that it is absolutely possible to get rid of those things from your body and to keep those systems of detoxification open. And in these, it used to be that we didn't have to be conscious about it, right? Because we get a certain amount in and we could get a certain amount out. But now we're getting like a certain amount in and we're still getting this amount out, and it's overwhelming our systems of detoxification. Okay. And the good news is there are so many things that can be done about this. So many things, including like Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is the hyperthyroiditis. Talk a lot about hypothyroid, but hyperthyroidism, right? What is it that caused your body to all of a sudden attack itself, to attack its own thyroid gland? I mean, there has to be some kind of level of dysfunction in the lifestyle or the environment that you're living in, or the way that you're living and the way you've been taught to live, the way you've been taught to eat, breathe, move, think, right? Drink. That has caused your own body to attack its master general for energy making, right? So we need to figure out what it is, and we need to do all of the things. And did you know it's all of the same things? It's the nutrition, it's the supplements, it's the movement, it's the mindset, it's the detoxification, all of those things, right? So that's the beauty of root cause medicine and a holistic approach, is that it doesn't matter to me on this, to a certain extent. I don't even really care what your blood work looks like. What I care about is, are you looking and feeling your most vibrant, healthy self? Like, do you have a sense of vitality and confidence that you used to have? And if the answer is no, then we have to like fix the entire system. I taught you about the thyroid pathway, but there's an estrogen pathway, there's a testosterone pathway, there's a progesterone pathway, right? And the really cool thing, ladies, is that, like I mentioned, all of those pillars for foundational health, if you apply them to your life, it will fix everything. So, yeah, sometimes I work with people who are hypothyroid, and then they're like, oh, by the way, not only are my hypothyroid symptoms better, but like my nails are growing stronger and I'm sleeping better and my energy is better. And like I had this issue with this and now that's gone. And it's like, yeah, because we're fixing the entire system, right? We're not just focusing in on the thyroid gland, we're taking a look at the entire system. And when you fix the entire system, everything gets better, right? So I hope that this helps for you to understand the beauty and complexity of the human body and how wonderful it is and how well it works. And that when things are not going well with it, it is you have a few options. You can let it continue to continue down this path of disease, like towards disease and decreased well-being. That is your choice. No one can take that away from you. If you're like, I don't want to change the way I eat, I don't want to take supplements, I don't want to change the way I move, I over exercise and I don't want to change that, or I under exercise and I don't want to change that, or I exercise at the wrong times but I don't want to change that. That is totally your choice. And then the beauty is that you can make a different choice. You can make a choice to do all the things, to change all the things, to make all, to make the difference in your health that you want, that you crave. If that's what you crave, if you're motivated and you really crave vibrant health, I there are very few conditions which are not reversible. Okay, yes, acute trauma with, like, you like cut off your leg, those kind of acute traumatic conditions. But even those might not be like reversible. I can't, like, people like me, doctors and healers like me, they can't help you grow back a leg. You know what, we can certainly make that experience better for you. We can certainly help the inflammation go down, the pain levels go down when inflammation go down, right? Your mindset around it really makes a big difference, how your tissues respond to that event. So even in acute traumatic events, it's absolutely possible to make dramatic changes in a person's health, working on those foundational pillars. All right. So I think the research shows that only like under 5% of chronic conditions are due 100% to genetics, right? And even we know now with the science that you can even change the way your DNA works. You can influence the way your DNA is read by the body to make your body. Okay, so there's a huge spectrum of wellness that we have accessible to us, and at the level of the thyroid, there are many different points at which we can, create the kind of lifestyle that will support that entire thyroid pathway. And it's beautiful and it's so much fun, and it's a lifestyle that I'm living. I can tell you it's totally doable. If you're like, oh, I can't live that kind of life, I'm telling you here and now, it's absolutely possible, and the results feel phenomenal. I had problems with my thyroid, and I do not have problems with my thyroid anymore, and I'm not on any medications, and I didn't use any medications. Some people need it to feel better in order to take the action. I 100% support that. 100% support that. Okay? So I'm not anti medications. I am pro holistic approach. And I hope that this helped you today. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me check the live. Oh, I was seeing Marie said she was late making her first batch of buckwheat bread. Yeah, I know, right? The buckwheat bread from the Elimination Diet workbook that I put out, it's getting really good reviews. So if you do any modifications to the recipe that you find really delicious, let us know, because it's always fun to try something new. So ladies, thank you so much for your participation, for your attention, for your time. I so appreciate you. I hope you're having a wonderful evening, day, evening, or night, depending on when you catch this. And I will see you next time. Bye.